During our last session, Andy Crouch of Praxis shared some incredible insights about the power of good work and good rest. If you missed it or want to watch it again, you can find the episode Good Work and Good Rest with Andy Crouch in the video library at faithdrivenentrepreneur.org. Understanding the relationship between work and rest is important for us as entrepreneurs. It's a fundamental concept that leads us into knowing something bigger about God and about ourselves. During this episode, we want to go from knowing to doing. What are some of the practical ways we can pursue rest while also pursuing our call to create? Interestingly enough, it all starts by stopping. Sort of. We live in a world that idolizes busyness. Packed schedules seem to be the reflection of meaningful lives. Frantically running from one appointment to another proves just how successful and important we are, or so we convince ourselves. We need to take a long look in the mirror. Can you imagine being around when the first mirror was invented? For the first time ever, you could see what others see, and it's not always pretty. As entrepreneurs, we're running so fast past the mirror that at best we get a blurry image of what is right in front of us. To see it clearly, we need to stop long enough for it to come into focus. We need to slow down. Only then will we see just how busy we are. We can argue all day long about how we can't miss a single opportunity to make the next sale or experience the next thrill, but that is idle talk. That is us believing that we are more important than God's commandment for rest. Our friend and Ianacare founder, Jessica Kim, talks with Henry Kaestner about the idol of busyness. She shares from personal experience the importance of entrepreneurs to slow down. We need to rest. Not to do nothing, but to actively take time to be with God. Let's watch.
We've recently had John Mark Comer on the podcast, and he's written an amazing book called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. In it, he tells the story of how outwardly he appeared successful, but inwardly things weren't pretty. So he turned to a trusted mentor for guidance and heard these words: ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life. Hurry is the great enemy of the spiritual life. These words immediately make me think of the life of an entrepreneur. We are constantly in a hurry, running from meeting to appointment to airport, go, 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 but at what cost? When we are without margin, how can we possibly add one more thing to our schedules? Our busyness can be more than exhausting when we're trying to make room for God. But here's the deal. We'll never have enough time or make enough room if we're just trying to fit God into our schedule. He needs to be first. When he is, everything else flows from there. We need to realize the importance of being attentive to God's presence and his promptings. This will help us as dreamers, leaders, and practitioners. Everything from our vision to our company becoming a reality will be influenced for the better when we put God first. Christ-following entrepreneurs have an unfair advantage in the marketplace. That's because he gives us a nuclear power source that makes it possible for us to do more than our limited minds could ever comprehend. Christ changes everything. Jessica, when we talk about this concept of the elimination of hurry and not being too frenetic, I think about our friend Kurt Kylacker a bit, and he reacts to this busyness that we have as entrepreneurs. And one of the things that is great comfort to me, because I love frameworks, as he talks about the fact that as leaders, we have three roles. We're to steward the mission and vision of the company, we're to resource the company, and we're to get the right people on the bus. And what I love about that is this, by saying that, it means everything else we would do, we need to remove. Because we can't steward the mission and vision of the company well if we're thinking about who's going to take out the trash or who's going to hire the next whatever. So it's those three things and just those three things. And that's such a relief for me, because otherwise, I don't know about you, but you get this feeling like you need to do it all, right?
Yeah. There's this constant feeling of just like heart palpitations and hurrying and got to do more and more and more. I also think when we think about busyness, it's not only with our work, but we also have outside of work responsibilities, right? So we're parents. I have 3 kids myself. I'm caring for my 83-year-old dad as his full-time caregiver. He lives with us. My husband, just everything. And so I love frameworks too. And the framework that has really changed my life is this 3-day rule. Have I ever told you
No.
this? So I just made it up whether you see, I was thinking about the food pyramid, right? And so there's this food pyramid and, there's like 30%, meat or whatever. It's all this portion. And I think, we put this pressure on ourselves to live every single day like it's actually perfectly aligned, right? And so we have to like squeeze everything in and it feels impossible. And so if we put that food pyramid requirement on every single meal, you and I would have failed today because we didn't have perfectly proportioned meals every single time. And so if we take that pressure off ourselves to do it every single day, that every single day it has to look like this exactly, but we broaden it out to say 3 to 4 days. That's symbolically. So for me, it's like 3 days. So I look at 3 days and I say, in 3 days, is that what my life should look like? Are my priorities reflected? And so for me, it's like, okay, my faith, my marriage, my kids, family, work, all those things. But instead of like cramming it all in one day, because that makes you feel this frantic nature, and just say in 3 days, does that look like
I
it?
like that a lot. So I think you should patent it. I'm going to give you all the credit for
Okay, it's recorded here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that also gets to this concept of seasons too, because as an entrepreneur, as we try to balance these different things. Now, I hope you'll agree with me that one thing that we need to make time for every day is time with God.
Yes.
And while I'd like to think that I'm like a Martin Luther who says, gosh, if I don't pray for 5 hours, I can't possibly do all the things I need to get done today.
Yeah.
So I'm not like that. I wish I was, and maybe I can grow into that. But if I don't have just a little bit of time, whether it's the Nikki Gumbel app or whether it's something to listen to Max McLean, I'm kind of lost. But other than that, I really feel that we can find ourselves in seasons. And what you're reacting to here is that just the pressure of that food pyramid every single day can have this like overhead of like 20% of stress.
Yeah.
So just remove it.
Yeah,
Just say,
exactly.
you know what, in aggregate, I want to make sure I do a great job with God and with my husband and with my kids, and yes, with my work. But there may be days and there may even be seasons. Like for instance, it's like to ship a product. In those cases, maybe 3-day work, and maybe it really needs to be like, a 10-day rule. Right? So just how do you process that? How do you just lean into this concept of seasons? And what does that look like as you communicate with Peter, your husband?
Yeah, so I love the framework of seasons. I feel like first it's to talk about it, to like identify what the season looks like. And again, every season in life is not going to look perfect. So sometimes the pressure we put ourselves, even as believers, is that you have to be the best parent, the best everything, right? But then in this season, and I would put a time frame to it, and it could change, but to say for the next 3 months, what does this look like for us? And what is non-negotiable every day, like time with God? But what is it okay to kind of let go of? And then, what does this season look like? What does it look like in our marriage? What does it look like for our kids? What does it look like for birth? So when I was in my fundraising season, we sat down and we said, this is going to be a crazy 2 months. It's going to look different. So how do we want to reprioritize, but then stick to it? And what are non-negotiables? And so what it does, it helps you to say, and just to have this comfort that I think a lot of this hurriness and busyness in our heart comes from trying to always live up to this vision we have for ourselves that may not even be rooted in God. Maybe it's the world's pressures. Maybe it's our own expectations. Maybe it's pride. And we're just like, we got to do it all. We got to do it all. We got to do it all. And then that's actually what crushes us. And that's what actually burns us out. And then we don't have time for the unexpected things that God places in our heart. So this is the other reason why I do this, because on a daily basis, my rule of thumb is if a friend calls me and needs to talk to me for an hour, am I going to be able to do that? Or we serve, have enough margin in your life. Exactly. And you can only do that if you kind of look at whatever season or time frame or whatever it is that we're talking about and say what's really important, and then where can I find any kind of margin? Because that's my rule of thumb. And there are days that goes by and I'm like, I wouldn't have been able to give an hour. So I got to change something. So I think it's a set of accountability too, that's my 3-day rule. It's every 3 days. And I look back and I ask my kids, was mommy there for you? I ask my husband, do you feel like I was present for you?
Wow.
Because I think, and then sometimes they say, yeah, you're fine, mom. And sometimes they're like, no, you were always on the phone.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, things got to stop. I got to change things. So I think it's interesting. I think some preparation helps you leave margin in your life so you can be more present and less like, oh, sorry, I'm super busy. I can't talk right now. Or like, just has this constant feeling of chaos.
And it's got to increase your partnership with Peter and with your kids, right? Because they helped to co-author this plan before it even started.
Yes.
So when it happens, they're not guessing. They know that there's safety in a framework. It's not like their mom's going to abandon them because they know we've already agreed to a framework.
Right.
We had some experience in doing it. There must be grace.
Grace.
Right?
There's total grace. And everyone has their season. So my daughter, she'll be trying out for lacrosse or something. So she's going to practice more. So maybe certain things with chores or whatever, like it's okay in this season. She's not a bad daughter for not doing that. And so I think it applies to every single person in your family and even your teammates.
Yeah. So how does it apply in your relationship with God?
Well, that's a non-negotiable. But even that will look different. So to your point, when I was a new believer, I went to a pretty strict church that was kind of like, this is what your devotion should look like. And to your point, it was like 1 hour of this, 2 hours of this, that. So there was a lot of guilt because I felt like, gosh, if I'm not doing it, then where am I? And then you kind of feel like, well, then I'll just let go or give up. But even with the 3-day rule or seasons or whatever it is, there's a certain time where I actually even pray to God and just say like, this is really busy, but help me not forget like who I am and who you are in my life. But it may sometimes look like just singing praise sometimes. And you know what? That's okay. I think the biggest thing is that it just has a constant presence in your life and that's non-negotiable. But it could look different. It doesn't mean that you have to do 2-hour Bible studies every single day.
That's right. That's right. But as with Peter and with our kids, we have an opportunity to go to God and say, God, this is a sensing that I have that you're taking me on this season. If it's not, closed doors that need to be closed, open doors that need to be open. May I always be found to be faithful and obedient to you. But dear Lord, this feels like a crazy season and help me. Just give me the strength and the power I need.
Right.
And Lord willing, we will always consider God to be our greatest partner and senior partner in our lives. And then with the confidence that comes from knowing that he's with us, then we stand a chance as we navigate partnerships with our families, with our coworkers, et cetera.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, we have to always remember why we're even busy, right? We have to remember that, God is calling us to do this mission, ultimate to love people. And so we don't have enough margin to be present or love people, then what's all this for? The way we work, the way we treat people, the way we steward the profits and margins entrusted to us. We know it's all his, and God is graciously inviting us to be part of his redemptive work in the world. Everything we do is a reflection of our relationship with God in a way that we can proclaim the name of Jesus. And if we're too busy, we don't have time to reflect on the enormity of the opportunity God is offering to us, not as a burden, but as an invitation. He is sharing this world with us. He is inviting us into the work that he loves, and he is reminding us of our identity as his sons and daughters. So what are you doing to ensure that God gets the prime spot in your planner and on your calendar? In what ways can you eliminate hurry in your life so you have even more room to reflect on God and his glory? Killing the idol of busyness just might be one of the most important things you do on your journey as a faith-driven entrepreneur.
Recently, God did something powerful by bringing together a dynamic group of 150 leaders in this faith-driven investor and faith-driven entrepreneur space to wrestle with how God might be calling us to lead. That started with each of them pausing and taking a deep look into that mirror. God is inviting all of us to kill the idol of busyness. As we do, we're able to make some adjustments. Or as our friend Andy Crouch says, we're able to make some detox moves. Only when we pause can we take the time needed to identify and remove the things that get in the way of our relationship with God. When we do, we come to recognize that our busyness and our strength will never be enough. We see our limitations not as a barrier, but as a springboard to depending on the God who can do immeasurably more. Rest makes us aware of God's power, and it causes us to find ways to invite others on that journey. God is using entrepreneurs and investors to make a difference in the world around us. Talk about the session in your group and how it relates to the journey you're on. Open yourselves up to learning from one another. Be transparent and honest with each other. What you get out of this time together will only be as enriching and life-giving as what you put into it. See you next time.